Does agriculture pay attention to transversal themes such as food safety, traceability of production, product quality, respect for the environment, and human resources?
Regarding food safety and traceability, for example, and also quality of the product, the European laws are strict and are very well done, so consumers can be considered somehow protected by this law. The environment is a very important issue because in Europe we have to use a lot of pesticides to control plant diseases. But these pesticides are bad for the environment and are bad also for the human health. So a solution that could reduce the use of pesticides would be to use genetic technologies, because with these genetic technologies you can reduce the use of pesticides by making the plants more resistant to the diseases. The problem is that these genetic technologies face a lot of difficulty of acceptance from consumers, and furthermore the European regulatory framework is very strict, and therefore the benefits of these technologies cannot be fully exploited. And the last thing regarding human rights, now there is a new law which is called the European Due Diligence Law, and this law could require companies to pay for the damages to the environment, but also to the damages of human rights and workers. Anyway, this law is general to all sectors, it's not specific to the agri-food sectors. Then we will need to see how this law could be applied to the agri-food sector.
How do you think that Pope Francis has influenced people's sensibility on these topics?
The first example that comes to my mind is the phenomenon of the economy of Francesco. So just 2 years ago, Pope Francis wrote a letter in which he asked to the young economist to do something, because there are a lot of inequalities and a lot of problems of injustice also related to agriculture, like access to food necessities, especially in developing countries. And it is very surprising that after this call of the Pope, a lot of young economists from all the world answered to this call, and they came from very different aspects of economy. So mainly academia, enterprises, and also the non-profit sector. And so I think that yes, Pope Francis has influenced a lot the sensibilities of these young economists. And one other thing that is important that also Pope Francis was saying is that this sensibility cannot be confined in the economists, but also it is something that must be shared to the population. So it is a path between the economies and the population to build a new economy and a better world that can solve these issues.
How do you think that actions of economic democracy like Into the Label can influence and impact our society in different cultural contexts?
At first, because come from the ground, it's something that comes from the population, and it helps the consumers to do responsible consumption by choosing the product according not only to price, but also to ethical aspects. And this is really interesting, and I think that this is important not only in a context of Europe, for example, but is important also in the context of developing countries, because even if in developing countries sometimes the main problem is the access to food, so the basic need, and this is a right to have access to food. I think that it is also a right for consumers to have access to ethical food. So not just have food, but also have access to food that is good in ethical terms, respects to its production and consumption.